right, welcome back to the next Gren Twigs video. In this one, I'm going to talk about something called opaque types. It is a feature of the Gren type system and type systems like it that let you write your code in such a way that the compiler can help enforce some of the constraints in your business logic. So to explain what I'm talking about, I created this naive little browser app. It's not currently using opaque types. The parts you need to understand are that there is a user. It may or may not exist. If it does, though, it has this email field, which I am saving as a string. There's a form field that they can type into. Once they submit that, I check if it's valid, and if it is, then I create the user. And I have a little message that displays based on if you are signed up or not. So I can't just type anything into the field. It has to kind of sort of look like an email address. If it does, great. However, what is stopping me from writing code that looks like this? I make my user without doing the validation check. Maybe I, move this code around. Maybe there's a few places that are creating users. Maybe we're pulling a user from a session, botched the session code, whatever. This will still compile, but when it runs, my logic is not correct. Now, I have a user that's not valid. The things preventing me from doing that are just writing good code, right? Code review, making, doing due diligence. Maybe I have a function that, and we say that function is the only thing you can use to make users. But you still have to remember to use that function. And that's the key behind opaque types. You can actually enforce that concept. The way I'm going to do it, let me put this back how it was, is instead of saving the email as a string, I'm going to save it as a custom type that I make called email. And if you aren't familiar with custom types, I think around episode 11 in Gren Twigs, I did a video on custom types, but you can also go to the book at gren-lang.org/book. There's a page on custom types. For the purposes of this video, you're going to want to understand that, but also probably the section on pattern matching and the section after that on destructuring, which is how you get data back out of a custom type. So assuming you've got those concepts down, I'll move on and show you what this would look like if the email was not a string, but a custom type. Let's go ahead and expose that. Now let's look at that email module. This email type is what's referred to as an opaque type because I'm only exposing the type. I'm not exposing the variants, which, if you remember, are the constructor functions that can create instances of that type. If I was exposing it like this, that in Gren, that's what it looks like if you are exposing the type and the constructor functions, but I'm not doing that. What that means is this module is now the only module that can create instances of an email type. So I don't even need to expose is valid anymore because that doesn't matter. The only functions that matter are creating an email, and I exposed a from string function for that, and getting that string back out with a toString function. The from string function, well, let me touch on this real quick. The variant, I don't know if I've had one like this in a Gren Twigs video where the variant name is the same as the type name. This might look a little strange, but you get used to it. Anywhere you're referring to the type, just know that you're talking about this. Anywhere you're creating an instance of the type with the function or referring to a variant. In pattern matching, you're talking about this, and the compiler is smart enough to figure that out. So our from string function it returns a maybe email, which means you're only going to get a valid email back. If you try to call from string with an email with a string that's not valid, you're going to get nothing, which means it is literally impossible to create an instance of our user without a valid email address. I didn't call this maybe email. I called it an email. So if I was going to update our code to do this, instead of if email is valid, I'm going to say when email dot from string is valid, which means I got a valid email, I can create my user. If it's not, then I can't. I just save it as nothing. I do need to update my view as well. It has this user greeting function. The email is no longer a string, but I made a handy function for that. But I just need to be able to type correctly. All right, I think this will compile. It does, and it should work the same way as it did before. You know, I can't make invalid users. The difference is, remember when I said, you know, one way to constrain that is to have a function. That's the only place that you can make your user, or in this case, an email. But you'd have to remember to do that. Here, you kind of still have to remember to do that. However, you literally can't do it any other way. You know, outside of that email module, you can't get a invalid email address. You have to use the from string function, and that's the only place that does it. That's the place that does the validation check. Now, it's kind of straightforward example, I guess, for an email, but you can think about this in many, many different contexts. In fact, in the last video, I showed Gren Twigs. I mean, not Gren Twigs. That's the name of this video series, Gren Tui. When I was writing Gren Tui, I was having a lot of trouble with some of the calculations I had to do because I'm dealing with strings, and the view, or an early version of it, the view was just a string. But I have to do a lot of calculations to get the visible width and height of that view, which means if you have stuff with new lines in it, it became, I had a lot of different places in the code where I had to worry about, okay, well, if the string has new lines in it, it's going to be, the visible height of this is going to be different than I thought. You know, you can't just get the width of a string and assume that that's the visible width, because, you know, some of those characters in the string might be a new line. And okay, well, it's not this wide, it's it's this high and the width of the longest string. So what I did was, I changed the view from a string to a custom type called an element. And this is an opaque type. And elements don't hold strings. They hold another opaque type called a single line. Or maybe element isn't an opaque type. Maybe it's just single line that's opaque type. But the core thing that helped me was creating this single line opaque type. So similar to email, it's just something that holds a string. You can only create a single line with this from string function. And notice it doesn't return single line, it returns array of single lines, because it will split that string on new lines and give you an array. So everywhere I have a single line type, I know that there are no new lines in it. It is literally a single line of text. Very helpful. My code got a lot simpler when I did that. Before I go, I know this video is already getting long. I might have to just accept the fact that Gren Twigs are going to be closer to 10 minutes than 5 minutes, but there is a video I wanted to show you called Making Impossible States Impossible. I think there might be other videos named this. You may have done this talk before, maybe even articles, but if you search for this, it touches on this concept of writing code in such a way that it's literally impossible to create data that's invalid according to your business logic. Opaque types is just one pattern that helps you with that. There's others. So take a look. It's a handy tool to have in your toolbox.